Hello and welcome to the week ahead from the Financial Times in London. Here's some of the big stories we'll be watching in the coming days. Finance officials from the group of 7 leading countries will be meeting to discuss global growth. US inflation data will give an idea of how closely the Fed is to meeting its targets. And Japanese car manufacturer Toyota reports fourth quarter results. First, G7 finance ministers and central bank governors will descend on Italy this week as the southern town of Bari hosts the officials for 2 days of meetings. Among the issues that will be covered in the talks is the relationship between inequality and economic growth, the role of world security as a public good, international taxation and financial regulation. Also on the agenda, of course, will be the global economy, which after years of underperformance is this year registering more impressive growth than many had expected. Much of the pessimism earlier in the year was down to the protectionist America First message broadcast by the Trump campaign. But in recent weeks, there's been a view among officials that that threat has to some extent diminished. Speaking after the meetings of the World Bank and International Monetary Funds in April, ECB President Mario Draghi, who is expected to be at the G7 meeting this week, had this to say.
The risk of protectionism or trade protectionism may have somewhat receded. The second point is that certainly markets are in the course, not us, but markets are in the course of a reassessment of the US fiscal policy.
And staying with the US, the Federal Reserve has become increasingly confident in recent months that it's on track not only to hit its employment goal, but also its inflation mandate. But data on the inflation front have begun to head in the wrong direction. The latest consumer price index, due on Friday, will give an early snapshot for April. Readings for March were disappointing, with a drop in the core consumer price index, which strips out food and energy. The numbers coincide with broader economic weakness for the first quarter. The rate of gross domestic product growth was an annual 0.7%, and retail sales have also fallen short. That said, early signs point to a pickup in the second quarter. The Atlanta Fed's GDP Now tool estimates growth of an annual 4.3% in the April to June period. Our US economics editor, Sam Fleming, had this to say on the data.
Inflation numbers have been surprisingly weak over the past couple of months in the United States, and that's surprising not only because the economy has been relatively robust, especially the labour market, but because the Federal Reserve has been expecting a pickup in inflation. That doesn't seem to be materialising. CPI data for March were relatively weak. The core PCE index, which is another way of measuring inflation, rose year on year about 1.56%, which is well below the Fed's 2% target. So policymakers are really waiting to see some sort of pickup in inflation towards their 2% target to vindicate their forecast that that is something that's going to happen, which helps to justify higher interest rates. So these numbers coming up on Friday are important in terms of confirming whether that trend is going to reverse and whether inflation is going to start to come through more strongly in the United States.
And finally, the weaker yen is expected to help Toyota beat its profit target when it announces its fourth quarter results on Wednesday. But profit growth is expected to be stemmed by an increase in research and development, costs for self-driving technology, fuel cell vehicles and electric cars. The Japanese automaker is also upgrading its plants worldwide as it rolls out new models over the next few years using revamped vehicle platforms and components. In terms of sales, Toyota is expected to be helped by a rebound in demand in Southeast Asia and a boost from the launch of new models. But as our motor industry correspondent Peter Campbell says, investors will be watching closely for any clarification surrounding US trade and tax policies under Donald Trump.
Toyota is likely to beat expectations for its fourth quarter profits when it reports them. But what people will be watching is what the world's second largest car maker has to say about the next 12 months. The global car industry is in a very interesting position. The US sales have peaked and are declining faster than anyone expected, while the price of raw materials such as steel is also likely to rise in the next year. Toyota's comments on the US market will be especially interesting given that Donald Trump has threatened to penalise car makers that sell into the market from Mexico and other countries. Toyota is building a new Mexican facility and also sells lots of cars there from Japan.
And that's what the week ahead looks like from the Financial Times in London. See you again next time.